May 2nd, Nova Scotia. A quiet morning turns into a nightmare. Jack and Lily Sullivan, gone without a trace. 2 missing kids. 2 parents. Countless conflicting stories. Were they sleeping? Were they in the kitchen? Was the back door open or shut? Footprints in the backyard. None in the front. No cameras, no witnesses, no solid leads. One lawyered up, one deleting messages. Where are the children now? How did 2 kids vanish while both parents are home? Who lost them, and why? Now, leaked text messages surface. New players enter the scene, and the lies are starting to crack open. The timeline of the disappearance. Lily and Jack Sullivan lived with their mother, Malehya Brooks, Murray, stepfather Daniel Martell, and infant sister Meadow in a remote home on Gairloch Road, Nova Scotia. The house was located deep in the woods, off-grid, with no nearby neighbors, no security cameras, and no internet connectivity. There were no school records, medical histories, or official documentation available for Lily and Jack. Essentially, the children existed outside of any public system. May 1st, 2025. In the afternoon, it was reported that Lily and Jack were still alive. Some photos or videos may have been taken, but these have not been publicly released or verified. That evening, no one outside the home saw or heard the children again. From this point forward, the only narrative available came from Daniel Martell. Morning of May 2nd, 2025, Daniel claimed he woke up between 6 and 7 a.m. and saw Jack playing in the kitchen while Lily, wearing a pink shirt, walked into a bedroom. After going to the bathroom, he said he returned to find both children gone. The sliding door was closed. There were no signs of forced entry or a breakout. There were also no visible footprints, drag marks, or any evidence that the children had walked off. Critically, there was no morning activity in the house to indicate the children were awake that day. Their beds were undisturbed, no breakfast had been prepared, and there was no noise or mess typical of 2 toddlers. 10:06 a.m., May 2nd, Malehya Brooks. Murray made a 911 call reporting the children missing. This call came approximately 3 to 4 hours after Daniel claimed to have discovered their disappearance. It was the first official notification. From May 2nd to 7th, 2025, RCMP launched a massive search operation. Hundreds of officers, search dogs, thermal drones, and aircraft combed the forest and rivers near Gairloch Road. Nothing was found, no footprints, no discarded clothes, no personal belongings. Some items, including a pink blanket, children's clothes, and a water bottle, were found in the woods, but Daniel denied they belonged to the missing children. May 7th, 2025. After 5 fruitless days, RCMP began scaling back the physical search. Investigators pivoted toward data analysis and digital forensics. The lack of any trace suggested this was no ordinary missing persons case. From May 8th to 15th, 2025, RCMP partnered with Maxar Technologies and Planet Labs to obtain high-resolution satellite imagery. Artificial intelligence was deployed to detect any anomalies on the property and surrounding areas. One key discovery was a rectangular patch of disturbed earth, approximately 2 meters long, which appeared after May 1st and vanished in then a few days. It was located off-trail, away from the main house and pathways. To this day, RCMP has not confirmed whether this site was excavated or what, if anything, was found. AI also flagged a gray SUV that passed the property 4 times in the early mornings during the 2 weeks surrounding the disappearance. Another point of interest was a woman wearing a wide-brimmed hat seen at 2 distant locations on different days at the same time, a pattern that raised eyebrows. A small car was also spotted near an abandoned shopping center just 800 meters from the Sullivan home on May 2nd. The vehicle did not match any registered in the area and remains unidentified. Mid-May to June 2025, Daniel remained in the house alone and continued to give interviews. However, his statements lacked new information. In a now widely criticized interview, he stated, "I'm not their father, so I don't really have any rights." That drew sharp backlash from the public. Malehya left the home shortly after the incident, taking her daughter Meadow with her. She moved back in with her family and cut off all contact with Daniel. The CPS barred Daniel from seeing Meadow, citing his lack of legal custody. Her family reportedly refused to communicate with him at all. Meanwhile, over 180 pieces of community-sourced footage from dashcams, drones, and CCTV were collected and reviewed. None of them showed the children, nor did they record any unusual activity near the home on the night of May 1st or early morning of May 2nd. Beyond June 2025. To date, no charges have been filed, no remains have been discovered, and no sightings confirmed. The RCMP has shifted the investigation into a more serious criminal inquiry, no longer treating the case as a typical missing persons scenario. The texts from Malehya. When it comes to the disappearance of Jack and Lily Sullivan, few pieces of information have sparked as much debate and scrutiny as the leaked text messages between Malehya, the children's mother, and their paternal grandmother. These messages, which surfaced in the weeks following the children's disappearance on May 1st, have been dissected for clues, contradictions, and potential indicators of deeper truths. Taken at face value, they provide a glimpse into Malehya's mindset. But under closer examination, they raise more questions than they answer. One of the first key points in the messages was Malehya's stated reason for keeping the children home that day. She claimed Jack and Lily were sick. Specifically, she said they had a cold. However, earlier reports mentioned that only one of the children had a cough. That discrepancy immediately triggered doubt. Why would both children be kept home if only one had symptoms? It suggested a possible attempt to justify their absence from school in a way that seemed medically plausible, yet poorly supported. Then came the explanation for how the children left the house. Malehya said they exited through the back door, a door that, according to her, makes no noise when opened. This detail seems calculated. It offers a reason why she wouldn't have heard them leave. But this raises a critical question. If she knew the back door was silent, why wasn't it locked or monitored, especially if the children were supposedly ill and needed supervision? This line of reasoning appears to deflect blame by citing a technicality, the door's silence, rather than accepting responsibility for not hearing or noticing the kids leaving. Malehya wrote that she was shocked the children would run off like that, and noted they had been missing since 9:40 a.m. This timestamp is vital. It appears precise and deliberate. However, Daniel Martell, the children's stepfather, previously referenced a different time, approximately 10 a.m. That 20-minute inconsistency might seem minor, but in cases involving child disappearance, time is critical. The mismatch suggests either confusion or deliberate obfuscation. Malehya also to portray the children as naturally adventurous. She stated they liked to explore the woods and often did so under supervision. This again seemed to serve a narrative purpose, to normalize the idea that they might have wandered off on their own. But here too, there is contradiction. Daniel Martell claimed that it was he who took the children outside, and that Malehya rarely joined them. So who was supervising the children during these outdoor adventures? The emotional tone of Malehya's messages attempted to paint a picture of desperation. She described herself as distraught and claimed she never imagined they would run off. Yet there were moments where her language felt oddly detached, mechanical, even rehearsed. When the grandmother asked if she wanted to push for more search efforts, Malehya responded that a big search team was already in place and more were coming. It felt more like a status update than a mother pleading for her missing children. In another notable exchange, Malehya mentioned that authorities wanted to speak to Cody, the children's biological father, implying that he hadn't seen the kids in some time. This statement came across as an attempt to redirect attention, as if suggesting that someone else might be worth looking into. But there is no evidence that Cody was anywhere near the children when they went missing. One of the most revealing parts of the conversation was when Malehya acknowledged the possibility of abduction. She stated that many people believed the children had been taken, pointing to the total absence of clues, including Lily's missing backpack. Highlighting this detail subtly frames the situation as something beyond her control. It also reinforces the image of her as a victim of circumstance, rather than a negligent or complicit party. When the grandmother asked whether the kids were known to wander into the street, Malehya replied, "Normally, no. But if they were in the front yard and someone stopped and convinced them to come over, they would go. They don't understand stranger danger." This sentence is particularly significant. It sets up a very specific hypothetical: a stranger luring the children away from the front yard. It feels like a soft foundation for a narrative that absolves any household member from wrongdoing, and instead introduces the idea of an external threat. Several inconsistencies become clear when placing all of these pieces together. The precise time given by Malehya is 9:40 a.m. That conflicts with Daniel's version, which is 10 a.m. Her claim of supervising the kids outdoor contradicts Daniel's statements that she rarely went outside. The description of the children as both sick and yet active enough to wander also doesn't sit well. And the emphasis on the missing backpack, as if it holds some unique weight, feels curiously deliberate. The claim that the children like to wander a lot also stands out. It appears to be an intentional attempt to normalize their disappearance. This could be a psychological strategy to soften the shock of the event, to portray it as an extension of usual behavior rather than a result of something more sinister. Moreover, these messages surfaced during a time when Malehya had become publicly silent. She had hired legal representation and stopped communicating directly with police or media. This made the texts even more important. They became the only insight into her perspective, the only lens through which the public could examine her thoughts and intentions. But this juxtaposition, private communication versus public silence, only heightened suspicion. Also worth noting is the role of the grandmother, who was very publicly active, attending vigils, posting daily about the missing children. Malehya's choice to engage her through messages to be interpreted in multiple ways. On one hand, it could be a genuine effort to keep the family informed. On the other hand, it could be a calculated move to ensure a specific narrative spread through someone with influence in the public eye. Conspicuously missing from the messages are details about Malehya's immediate actions after discovering the children were gone. Did she search the house? Call neighbors? When exactly did she contact authorities? None of this is addressed. In criminal investigations, what isn't said can be just as revealing as what is. These gaps in the narrative are not just omissions. They are voids that investigators are trained to examine closely. Ultimately, these messages do not paint a cohesive, trustworthy picture. Instead, they feel carefully constructed, shaped to guide opinion and deflect blame. While they may have been intended to clarify, they have only added to the fog surrounding Jack and Lily Sullivan's disappearance. Text from Daniel. For Daniel, the leaked text messages allegedly sent by himself, stepfather of missing children Jack and Lily Sullivan, have become a focal point in public scrutiny surrounding the case. These messages, reportedly sent via to Charmaine, a contributor to the YouTube channel It's a Criming Shame, surfaced a few weeks after the children disappeared. The timing of the leak coincided with growing suspicion toward Daniel from online communities. After the messages were made public, Daniel requested that they be taken down. This action raised eyebrows, suggesting either an attempt to disassociate himself from the statements or to minimize any legal consequences. The sudden removal only intensified public interest and skepticism. Among the most striking elements of the messages was Daniel's admission that the previously reported time of 10:00 a.m., the hour the children were supposedly discovered missing, was inaccurate. In his own words, the 10:00 a.m. time wasn't accurate. This small yet significant revision undermines the original timeline and casts doubt on the credibility of the household's narrative. Daniel also brought up Malehya's mental health, stating she had it, in reference to postpartum depression. The use of past tense implies she no longer suffers from it, which contradicts the prevailing public belief that she may still be experiencing its effects. His decision to highlight this detail shortly after public speculation on social media has led some to believe he was leveraging popular narratives to shape perception. One of the most controversial aspects of the messages is the subtle blame directed toward Malehya. Daniel's wording suggests she was emotionally unstable, possibly dangerous. He expressed a desire to return to the old Daniel, a phrase interpreted by some as a confession that he had not been his best self during recent events. This has led to theories that Malehya was attempting to leave Daniel, and that the situation at home may have been tense or unsafe. In the chat box, when the text messages began circulating, Daniel was quick to request their removal. This move suggests concern about how the messages would be perceived, especially if used as evidence in an investigation. Some viewed this as a red flag, hinting that he may have realized the damage they could cause to his reputation or legal standing. The messages also contradict earlier statements made to authorities and the media. By altering the timeline and introducing new claims about Malehya's mental health, Daniel effectively disrupted the official narrative. If the original account was inaccurate, what else might have been concealed or manipulated? Psychologically, pointing to postpartum depression places Malehya in a vulnerable light, potentially shifting public suspicion away from Daniel. This maneuver, however, becomes more complex when viewed alongside suggestions that Daniel himself exhibited controlling or pressuring behavior during their relationship. Daniel's demand to remove the messages after they were leaked also aligns with classic defensive behavior. Innocent individuals often maintain their statements unless presented with valid reasons to recant. His urgent reaction implies awareness of how incriminating or damaging these texts might be. Another curious element is Daniel's decision to engage with a small YouTube channel rather than larger, more established media outlets. This may have been a strategic choice, assuming the smaller platform would be more sympathetic or less scrutinizing. Yet, ironically, the choice backfired when the conversation was made public. Taken together, these messages paint a murky portrait of Daniel Martell's role in the ongoing mystery of Jack and Lily Sullivan's disappearance. While none of the messages contain a direct confession or explicit admission of wrongdoing, they introduce inconsistencies, indirect accusations, and a shifting timeline that complicates an already fragile narrative. Make it worse, another and more widely circulated set of leaked messages attributed to Daniel Martell, also with its accriming shame, shed even deeper light on his perspective and potential motives. These texts began with Daniel's portrayal of his relationship with Jack and Lily Sullivan. He claimed that the children called him Dad, came to him for everything, and never turned to Malehya. He emphasized that Malehya had no control over the children, describing them as wild with her but well-behaved when with him. These statements seem carefully crafted to present Daniel as the emotionally stable, authoritative father figure, while positioning Malehya as incapable and unfit. He followed this by affirming his unwavering commitment to Malehya and the children. "I promised myself I'd always be there for Malehya and the kids. And I am holding that promise." The tone was one of devotion and duty, reinforcing the image of Daniel as a loyal protector. Daniel also described a significant turning point in his relationship with Malehya. He stated that she had been planning to stay with him and their baby and to leave with his cousin. However, after spending just 5 minutes with her mother, Malehya's demeanor allegedly shifted entirely. She couldn't even look at him. Implicit in this message was a suggestion that Malehya's mother played a disruptive or even manipulative role in her decisions, possibly straining their relationship. Perhaps the most controversial portion of these messages involves Daniel's account of the morning the children went missing. He claimed that his mother, who had been napping, came outside after hearing him yelling for the children. At that moment, Malehya was supposedly playing on her phone. According to Daniel, his mother noticed something strange. Malehya didn't seem scared or distraught that the kids were missing. Instead, she looked worried that she had been caught doing something wrong. The absence of tears or panic, as reported by Daniel, was framed as suspicious behavior. This narrative runs directly counter to what Malehya shared in public interviews. While she told media outlets that she called the police immediately upon realizing the children were missing, Daniel claimed otherwise. He said she asked him if she should call the police, which, if true, would severely undermine her credibility. In investigations involving child endangerment, timeline integrity is critical, and contradictions like this can be pivotal. Daniel further added that he was the one who typically took the kids outside, asserting that Malehya rarely joined them. This claim directly contradicts statements Malehya made to the children's paternal grandmother, in which she said she regularly supervised the kids during outdoor play. Again, the contradiction points to a larger pattern of diverging narratives between the two adults most closely involved in the children's lives. Even as he leveled these criticisms and suspicions, Daniel still expressed strong emotional ties to Malehya. He declared that he loved her more than anything and reminisced about their early relationship, saying he wanted to relive their first date at the waterfalls as the Daniel she first met. This blend of longing and blame paints a conflicted picture: a man who feels wronged, misunderstood, but still emotionally entangled. Taken together, these messages present an image of Daniel that is complex and at times contradictory. On the one hand, he positions himself as a loving father figure and devoted partner. On the other, he casts Malehya as emotionally unstable, negligent, and potentially deceptive. He shifts blame subtly, but persistently, from Malehya to her mother, from himself to external influences. Key inconsistencies arise. Daniel both praises and undermines Malehya in the same breath. He presents himself as stable and loyal, but is quick to spread blame and suspicion. His version of events conflicts with Malehya's public accounts on crucial points, such as the police call and outdoor supervision. There is also a glaring omission. Daniel never takes personal responsibility for anything. Despite being one of the last people to see Jack and Lily, and being present at the home when they vanished, his texts contain no introspection or acknowledgement of fault. Instead, the focus is on how others failed: Malehya, her mother, even the kids themselves. The leaked messages may have revealed a flood of new information, but given the timing of their release, the heated online debates surrounding the case, and the unusual tone and structure of the texts themselves, one question remains: can we really trust what was written? First, the platform where the messages originated raises eyebrows. All the messages surfaced through a small channel rather than a reputable media outlet. The choice to communicate with a lesser-known YouTuber instead of established journalists or law enforcement casts suspicion on both the intent and accuracy of the messages. Why would someone involved in such a high-profile case share sensitive information privately with a niche channel while avoiding mainstream scrutiny? Compounding the issue is the fact that Daniel later requested the removal of these messages. His shift in stance suggests either regret, fear of backlash, or possibly that the messages were not meant to be public in the first place. It also raises the possibility that the messages may have been selectively edited or misrepresented. The lack of consistent transparency from Daniel only adds to the confusion. Another troubling aspect is the strange linguistic style of the messages. The recipient themselves described the writing as awkward and difficult to interpret. This unusual presentation led some to speculate that the texts may have been altered, restructured, or even fabricated. The lack of clarity opens the door to the possibility that someone else could have written or manipulated the content to serve a specific narrative. Speaking of narrative, many critics have noted that the tone of the messages feels overly curated. Daniel frequently reiterates lines such as, "I promised I'd always be there," or "They called me Dad." This type of intentional image building seems inconsistent with the emotional chaos one might expect from a parent whose stepchildren have just vanished. Further skepticism arises from the fact that some of Daniel's claims in the messages align almost too conveniently with popular online theories. For instance, His mention of Malehya's postpartum depression and the disputed timeline of 10 a.m. echo topics that were already circulating on social media. This suggests that the messages may have been crafted, at least in part, in response to public discourse, rather than as spontaneous or private reflections. Lastly, there has been no independent verification of the messages from Daniel himself or any official authority. He has not confirmed the texts through any public statement or legal representation. Likewise, law enforcement has neither authenticated the messages nor acknowledged them as part of the formal investigation. Without confirmation from credible sources, the integrity of the messages remains in limbo. Taken together, these issues create a compelling case for caution. While the messages may offer intriguing insights, they should be treated with skepticism until they are verified through credible means. Until then, their role in the story of Jack and Lily Sullivan remains ambiguous at best and potentially misleading at worst. Belynda and Justin Martell. When two children vanish without a trace, every detail matters. Every neighbor, every noise, every person on the property becomes part of a tangled web of possibility. In the case of Lily and Jack Sullivan, two siblings who went missing under still, mysterious circumstances, two individuals stand out not because they've spoken, but because they haven't. Belynda Martell and her son Justin lived just a few feet from the home where the children were last seen. Yet their silence is deafening. Role in residence Belynda Martell is the mother of Daniel Martell, the stepfather of Lily and Jack Sullivan. She is not a biological grandmother, but according to those close to the family, she had a grandmotherly presence in the children's lives. Belynda resided in a white RV, essentially a mobile home, parked just a few yards away from the house Malehya shared with Daniel. She shared this RV with her younger son, Justin Martell. This physical proximity placed her in a unique position, potentially one of the last adults to see or hear the children before they vanished. The morning of May 2nd, according to Daniel, Belynda was inside the RV, asleep on the morning of May 2, the day the children were reported missing. Daniel claimed that as he started calling out for the children, Belynda woke up, came outside, and encountered Malehya on her phone. The detail Daniel chose to highlight was his mother's impression of Malehya's behavior. She had a look of worry in her eyes that mom was home. No tears. She wasn't scared the kids were gone. Just a look of worry that she got caught for something wrong. Daniel used this as an indirect accusation, suggesting that Belynda herself had noted something off, something not quite right about how Malehya reacted to the children's disappearance. While this statement isn't a direct allegation, it introduces a serious implication that the mother of the missing children was more concerned about being caught than about her kids being gone. Context and impact of her statement. This quote, while short, has been heavily scrutinized. First, it frames Malehya in a highly negative light, reinforcing suspicions that were already brewing online. Second, Belynda never confirmed these words herself. They were shared by Daniel, secondhand. That raises questions. Did she truly say them? In what tone? With what intent? What's more troubling is what followed. Within days or weeks of the disappearance, Belynda reportedly told Malehya to leave the house. She left, with her youngest child, just a toddler, in tow. This action has stirred significant speculation. Was Belynda trying to remove someone she suspected? Was she asserting control over the household after a traumatic event? Or was this about something else entirely, tension that had long been simmering beneath the surface? Silence in the public sphere. Despite her apparent importance in this case, Belynda has not once spoken publicly. No press statements. No interviews. No social media activity. It is unknown whether she has been formally interviewed by law enforcement. That silence is, to many observers, more suspicious than any statement she could have made. Why, they ask, would someone so close to the scene remain invisible? Timeline discrepancies. Another layer of complexity comes from conflicting timelines. Malehya told authorities the children vanished at 9:40 a.m. Daniel initially said 10 a.m., then retracted it. Belynda, according to Daniel, heard the children at 8:30 a.m. That's a full hour before they were supposedly last seen. If accurate, it suggests the children may have been unaccounted for much earlier than initially believed. And if Belynda truly heard them, then she might be the last adult, aside from Malehya and Daniel, to do so. Role and presence. Justin Martell is Daniel's younger brother and Belynda's son. This put him even closer to the epicenter of the case than most peripheral figures. And yet, he has never been publicly identified as a witness or contributor to the case in any official capacity. There are no statements, no interviews, no texts, no sightings, nothing. The invisible witness. Justin's total absence from the narrative is almost eerie. He was present, likely within earshot of anything happening at or around the house on May 2. Yet there is no confirmation that he heard yelling, saw the children, spoke to Malehya or Daniel, or interacted with law enforcement. If he was home, he may have heard something: footsteps, voices, doors. If he wasn't, where was he? And why hasn't that been clarified? Potentially crucial, but unused. Perspective in a case where scent dogs couldn't find a trail, security cameras revealed no movement, and even timeline accounts are shaky. Justin's proximity matters. If anyone saw or heard anything subtle, a backpack moved, a car idling, footsteps in gravel, it could be someone in that RV. The fact that Justin's voice is entirely missing from the record only deepens the mystery. Either he has nothing to share, or he was never asked, or he has chosen, perhaps been advised, not to speak. So much of this case hinges not just on what was said, but what wasn't. The gap between 8:30 a.m. and 9:40 a.m. is nearly an hour. In missing persons cases, especially involving children, that span can be life-altering. Who was awake during this time? Who was outside? Did anyone hear the door open? Was the back door really silent? Why was it unlocked or unattended? And why is there no security footage from such a closely clustered set of homes and RVs? Another strange gap in the narrative is the 16-month-old child, the youngest sibling named Meadow. According to Daniel, the baby was in the room with him and Malehya when the two older children allegedly slipped out through the back door. But no detail has been given about the baby's condition. Was the child asleep or awake? Who watched the baby when the panic started? Could the baby have heard something, a voice, a scream, a car? Is there any reason the baby was not mentioned more by Daniel or Belynda? The baby, while obviously unable to speak, is a crucial part of the puzzle. That child was in the room when everything happened, or didn't happen. The absence of focus on this child raises questions about how much attention was truly being paid at the time. One of the most haunting details is the lack of physical evidence. No footprints, no drag marks, no signs of a struggle, no scent trail leading away from the home. The only thing found: a single dinosaur rain boot, Lily's, near the driveway. If the children walked off, where are their other shoes? If someone took them, how did they get close enough without being seen or heard? These questions only grow in intensity when considering the people closest to the scene, people like Belynda and Justin. Did they see a stranger approach? Hear a car? Did someone knock on the RV? Did they notice if anything seemed out of place? Even if they didn't, why hasn't that been publicly clarified? In investigations like this, silence can be a form of testimony. Belynda Martell and Justin Martell live at ground zero of this tragedy. One made a secondhand statement. The other said nothing at all. Law enforcement has not publicly clarified their roles, nor has it confirmed whether they've been interviewed. The Martells may be witnesses. They may be victims of proximity. Or they may hold keys they've yet to offer. What's clear is this: their place in this case is not neutral. Not when children are missing. Not when time is slipping away. Daphne and Cody Sullivan. Among the insiders, there is Daphne Sullivan, reportedly the aunt of Cody Sullivan, the children's biological father. Though not a household name in the investigation, her limited yet poignant presence in online forums has been quietly influential. Daphne Sullivan, sometimes spelled as Daphne, was not publicly recognized by any law enforcement agency or media outlet. Yet, through comments and posts in a group dedicated to the missing children, she became one of the first individuals to suggest that Cody had been formally interrogated by police. According to her, Cody, her nephew, was questioned for 4 hours. This revelation was significant, not only because it was the first of its kind, but also because it did not originate from official channels. Rather, it came from someone with personal ties to the family, shared in a community of concerned citizens, trying to piece together a fragmented story. Daphne's statements in the group went further. She revealed that Cody and his side of the family hadn't seen Jack and Lily for over a year, and importantly, not by choice. She wrote that, "The grandma hasn't seen Jack and Lily in like over a year, not by their choice." This detail adds a critical layer to the story. It implies that there was active estrangement, or possibly even a custody battle, that isolated Cody from his children. Whether this separation was court-ordered, informally arranged, or due to interpersonal conflicts, the result is the same: one half of the children's biological family was entirely cut off. Daphne's tone was not accusatory, nor did she aggressively defend Cody. Instead, she seemed more focused on advocating for fairness and truth. Her posts did not attempt to shift blame or vilify anyone. This approach earned her some credibility among online observers, especially those skeptical of dramatic narratives or emotionally charged finger-pointing. She came across not as someone trying to manipulate public perception, but as a concerned relative trying to speak up without adding fuel to the fire. Her mention of Cody's 4-hour interrogation was especially notable. Up until that point, there was no public record or media acknowledgement that Cody had been interviewed at all. If true, the fact that Cody was brought in for questioning suggests that law enforcement did not fully dismiss him as irrelevant. And if this interrogation occurred shortly after the children were reported missing, it raises additional questions. What was Cody's alibi? What did police find, or fail to find, that led them to release him without charge? There is also the issue of Cody's complete absence from the public narrative. Unlike Malehya and Daniel Martell, whose messages, videos, and even behavioral analyses have flooded social media, Cody has remained in the shadows. He hasn't spoken to media outlets. He hasn't issued any statements. His social media activity, if any, has been minimal and mostly speculative. This silence could be interpreted in several ways. It may be a result of legal advice. It could be emotional trauma. Or it might be strategic and intentional distancing from a volatile and rapidly evolving case. Yet, the most confounding part of Cody's position is how invisible he has become. For a father whose children have vanished, one might expect a press conference, a plea to the public, or even just a post begging for information. The lack of any such actions is unsettling. It doesn't mean guilt, of course, but it does mean mystery. And in a case where every timeline, emotion, and reaction is scrutinized, mystery is its own kind of suspicion. Daphne's involvement is equally paradoxical. While she provided some of the only concrete claims about Cody's treatment by police, she too has faded from view. Her initial posts, which were verified via screenshots by multiple group members, eventually stopped. She hasn't returned for follow-ups. She hasn't clarified her statements. And most notably, she hasn't doubled down on defending Cody even when online discourse became hostile. That neutrality, or perhaps silence, has left room for interpretation. Some view her as honest and reserved. Others see her as holding back. It's also worth noting that neither Daphne nor anyone from Cody's side of the family has appeared in any official search parties, interviews, or vigils that have been documented. This absence has allowed others to fill the vacuum of narrative. Daniel Martell and Malehya, for all their faults and contradictions, have been very public. The same cannot be said of Cody or his relatives. So, what does this mean in the broader scope of the investigation? First, it suggests that there are still large parts of the story we don't have. Second, it underscores how important family dynamics are, especially those that existed before May 2nd. If Cody was truly isolated from his children for over a year, what were the reasons? Were there legal documents to that effect? Was it a safety issue? A personal vendetta? The answers to those questions could reshape how we interpret everything that happened afterward. Moreover, Cody's potential role, however passive or active, must be weighed against the emotional and psychological background provided by Daphne. Her tone was not one of defiance, nor sorrow, it was resignation. She seemed to accept that the family had been pushed out of the children's lives and had little recourse. Whether this was true, or part of a more complicated backstory, remains unclear. Perhaps most interesting of all is how Daphne's disclosure has affected the digital investigation community. Her comments gave many Emma sleuths the justification to look deeper into Cody. They also highlighted the fact that law enforcement may be conducting interviews and gathering data behind the scenes without media leaks or public updates. In other words, her seemingly casual Facebook posts may have had a larger impact than initially understood. In summary, Jack Sullivan and Cody Sullivan remain enigmatic, but essential figures in the Jack and Lily Sullivan case. Daphne, through just a few lines of text, introduced entirely new dimensions to the investigation, revealing police interest in Cody and shedding light on a fractured family dynamic. Cody, through his silence and physical absence, has become an object of speculation. Is he simply a grieving father unjustly kept away? Or is he a missing piece in a much darker puzzle? Insider-related theories. When it comes to the disappearance of Jack and Lily Sullivan, within the circle of the inconsistencies, among the people closest to them raise serious concerns. These aren't just small details that don't match, they're structural cracks in the story. Ones that point toward darker, more unsettling possibilities. One of the most widely discussed theories is that a tragic accident happened inside the home, and instead of alerting authorities, the adults involved covered it up. The timeline is the first red flag. Daniel Martell initially told authorities and the public that the children were last seen at 10 a.m. Later, in leaked messages, he quietly admitted that the 10 a.m. timestamp wasn't accurate. That admission is more than a correction. It completely destabilizes the entire narrative of that morning. Malehya, the children's mother, claimed they went missing at exactly 9:40 a.m., but Daniel also said that his mother, Belynda, heard the kids at 8:30 a.m. That means there's an unexplained 70-minute gap, and in a missing child case, that's an eternity. What's even more alarming is that no one has clearly stated who first realized the children were gone. There is no documented account of the moment the door was opened, or when the first panic set in. Then there's the physical evidence, or lack of it. There were no signs of the kids walking away, no footprints, no scent trails picked up by dogs, no clothing or objects dropped in haste. Adding to the suspicion is the emotional tone described by Daniel. Why would a mother whose children have just gone missing decide to relocate? Most parents would cling to the area, desperate for answers, unwilling to move an inch. Her quick departure could be interpreted as an attempt to distance herself from the scene before questions started closing in. All of this supports one central theory: that something tragic happened in the house on the morning of May 2. It could have been an accident, something like a fall, suffocation, or sudden injury. Perhaps it happened while Daniel, Malehya, and the baby were in the room, as he claimed. What happened next may have been driven by fear of going to jail, fear of losing custody, or simply fear of blame. Instead of reporting the accident, the scene may have been staged to look like the kids left the house on their own. A door left open. No obvious struggle. A quiet setup meant to suggest they wandered off. This theory is hard to swallow. No one wants to believe that people could do such a thing, especially not to their own children. But the inconsistencies make it harder and harder to ignore. Contradictions in timing, unusual behavior, vague recollections, and above all, a total absence of physical clues that the kids ever walked away. It's important to recognize that this theory doesn't rely on the idea of malice. It relies on panic, on fear, on the kind of irrational decisions people make in the worst moments of their lives. If a fatal accident did occur, the choice to cover it up may not have been premeditated. It may have been a moment of desperation. But that doesn't make it any less tragic. Beside that, there is another theory that were multiple adults in the household, not just aware of what happened, but complicit in shaping a story to cover it up. From the very beginning, the most striking pattern in this case is the shared proximity but collective silence. 3 adults, Daniel Martell, his partner Malehya, and his mother Belynda, were all living within steps of each other. Daniel and Malehya shared the main house. Belynda and her other son, Justin Martell, lived in a white RV just a few yards away. Yet, despite being so close to the scene, not one of them has provided a clear, consistent timeline of the events on the morning the children went missing. Even more troubling is the total absence of any information about Justin Martell. He lived in the RV with Belynda, which was parked on the same property as the main house. He would have been in an ideal position to hear or notice anything out of the ordinary. And yet, he has never spoken publicly, made any statements to investigators, or been referenced in leaked conversations. The lack of basic procedural details adds to the concern. No one has explained who opened the door to discover the children were gone. There's no account of a frantic search in the neighborhood. No neighbors recalling hearing shouts for help. It's as if the most emotionally charged part of the day, the moment of discovery, was collectively erased from everyone's version of the story. Meanwhile, Daniel's own behavior raises red flags. In leaked messages, he admitted that the original 10 a.m. timeline was incorrect, which shatters any clarity about the morning's events. He also made emotionally ambiguous statements like, "I want to go back to the old Daniel," phrasing that implies regret, shame, or a desire to disassociate from recent actions. Furthermore, he attempted to have his own leaked messages scrubbed from public view, a move that often signals deeper concerns about legal or personal consequences. Then, there's Belynda Martell's role, which is perhaps the most shadowy of all. As the matriarch living just yards from the children, her voice should be central to this story. But she has remained publicly silent. The only quotes attributed to her come secondhand, from Daniel, who claims Belynda saw Malehya acting worried, but not grieving. More telling, Belynda reportedly asked Malehya to leave the home with her baby just days after the children disappeared. An unusual and suspicious move. Why would she want Malehya gone so quickly? Was it to protect her, or to distance herself from something that had already happened? One of the most critical unknowns involves the white RV. Despite its proximity to the main house, there has been no disclosure about whether it contained security cameras, or if any footage was handed over to law enforcement. In an age where even doorbell cameras can provide vital leads, this absence of video evidence stands out. If the RV had cameras, and they were never reviewed or submitted, it would be a massive investigative oversight, or worse, a deliberate obstruction. Altogether, these details suggest a pattern of coordination, or at the very least, silent consent. Not necessarily a group conspiracy with a pre-planned motive, but a series of small decisions, silences, and omissions that point to a shared interest in maintaining a single version of the story. If a tragic accident occurred and was immediately recognized by someone in the house, it's entirely possible that multiple people agreed to frame the situation as a disappearance. The silence of Justin, the inconsistencies in Daniel's timeline, and the authoritative control shown by Belynda all support this idea. It's important to acknowledge that not all forms of complicity are equal. One person might have been the primary actor, while others, out of fear, confusion, or loyalty, chose not to speak up. But the result is the same, a version of events, shaped by more than one person, each playing a part in keeping the truth buried. This theory explains more than just the timeline gaps. It accounts for the emotional disconnection, the lack of urgency, and the absence of reliable first-person observations from those closest to the children. It also aligns with the subtle power dynamics in the household, particularly Belynda's apparent influence over both her sons and her control of the living environment. In cases of child disappearances, the most unsettling suspects are often not strangers, but those closest to the family. In the case of Jack and Lily Sullivan, one theory that cannot be ruled out is that the children may have been taken by someone familiar, possibly even a relative. The details scattered throughout this case subtly support the possibility of an abduction carried out by someone the children knew and trusted. One of the most consistently mentioned names, yet notably absent from any active parenting role, is Cody Sullivan, the children's biological father. According to multiple sources, Cody had been kept out of the children's lives for over a year leading up to their disappearance. This was not a matter of disinterest, but of alleged restriction. Daphne Sullivan, Cody's aunt, posted in a community group that neither she nor Cody had been allowed to see Jack and Lily for over a year. She emphasized that this estrangement was not by their choice. This prolonged absence could easily breed frustration, grief, or a desperate sense of loss. When a parent feels forcibly removed from their child's life, the emotional intensity can be overwhelming. If Cody, or someone from his side of the family, truly believed they were unjustly cut off from Jack and Lily, the motive for taking the children could stem from a misguided attempt to rescue them or re-establish a connection, rather than malicious intent. Adding to the suspicion is the fact that Cody was officially interrogated by the police for 4 hours, according to Daphne. This is the only known law enforcement interaction involving Cody, and it raises several questions. Why was he questioned at all? Was it due to proximity, past tensions, or was there evidence, however circumstantial, that pointed in his direction? It's also worth noting the way Malehya refers to Cody in her leaked messages. When asked about the situation, she says, "They want to ask Cody." The phrasing feels deflective, as if mentioning Cody was a knee-jerk reaction, a way to redirect attention. Whether intentional or not, it implies that Cody had already been on the radar in some capacity. The physical evidence, or lack thereof, further supports the theory of a non-violent removal. There was no sign of forced entry, no broken windows, no screams or signs of struggle. In fact, canine units failed to detect any scent trail leading away from the house, which is highly unusual in a typical runaway or kidnapping scenario. The only trace left behind was a single dinosaur boot print near the edge of the driveway. Could this have been the point where a vehicle was parked? A point where the children exited willingly? Malehya herself, in one of her more telling messages, acknowledged the children's vulnerability to strangers. She said, "If someone stopped in the front yard and talked to them, they would go. They don't understand stranger danger." But what if the person wasn't a stranger at all? What if it was someone they recognized, someone they called family? That would eliminate hesitation, fear, and resistance. It would explain why no one heard a thing. No yelling, no panic. Just two children walking out to greet someone they believed they could trust. There's also a psychological element to consider. If the children were taken by someone they knew, there's a higher chance that they cooperated voluntarily. This would explain the complete lack of disruption or noise. It also aligns with the theory that a plan was in place, whether meticulously crafted or impulsively acted upon, by someone who had been watching, waiting for a moment when the children were unguarded. In this scenario, the timeline matters greatly. If Jack and Lily were taken before 9:40 a.m., as some alternate accounts suggest, then the window of opportunity is narrow but not impossible. If someone knew the household's morning patterns, when the adults were distracted, or when the children might be playing near the front yard, that's when they could have made their move. This theory does not necessarily accuse Cody outright. It's possible that someone else from the side of the family, emboldened by anger or grief, acted alone or in concert. The important point is that someone with personal knowledge of the family structure and access to the children was likely involved. Despite these suspicious threads, Cody and his relatives have remained largely absent from the public eye, making it difficult to gauge their behavior or responses. Unlike Malehya's side of the family, which has appeared in vigils and social media posts, Cody has not issued a single public statement, no interviews, no denials, no pleas, just silence. While this could be seen as a sign of privacy or legal caution, it also creates an information vacuum that invites suspicion. Still, Daphne's posts paint a different picture. While clearly close to Cody, she doesn't fully exonerate him, nor does she attack Malehya. Instead, she highlights the emotional wounds of being kept away and expresses sadness about the situation. It's a tone of confusion and quiet frustration, not rage or blame. That nuance matters. In conclusion, this third theory, that someone familiar to the children, perhaps from Cody's side, orchestrated their disappearance, cannot be dismissed. The elements are their long-standing estrangement, emotional motive, an opening of opportunity, and total absence of physical resistance. If true, it would mean the children may not have been taken with violence or force, but through familiarity, trust, and a terrible decision made under emotional strain. And that makes the mystery not only more heartbreaking, but possibly, one day, solvable. The developments. One of the most talked about developments in the case is the news that Daniel Martell, the children's stepfather, reportedly passed a polygraph test. While polygraph results are not admissible in court and can be unreliable, especially in cases involving potential substance use or emotional flatness, the community still viewed it as a significant step. At the same time, authorities have allegedly begun analyzing laptops and mobile phones, most likely belonging to Daniel and possibly others living on the property. These devices could hold vital clues, including digital communications, search history, or GPS data relevant to the children's disappearance. Daniel's reported success with the polygraph sparked a wave of public demand for transparency from the rest of the household. Many now insist that everyone living on the property, including the children's mother Malehya, Daniel's mother Belynda Martell, his brother Justin Martell, and even Malehya's extended family, should also take polygraph tests. The reasoning is simple: if they have nothing to hide, then passing a polygraph could help clear their names and pave the way for the activation of an AMBR alert. For many in the public, it's not just about who is guilty, it's about who is willing to cooperate fully. Recently, multiple eyewitness accounts and video footage have documented heavy police activity at the Sullivan property. Residents and online users have reported seeing at least 3 unmarked, blacked-out vehicles parked outside. Several officers were observed searching beneath the trailer with flashlights, inspecting windows, and examining the yard. One witness even claimed the police removed part of a newly installed porch. While no official statement has confirmed this, some believe the vehicles belong to IHT, the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team. If true, that would signal a major escalation in the seriousness of the investigation. Despite recent activity, there remains significant skepticism toward the RCMP, particularly regarding their capacity and urgency. The case unfolded in a remote part of Nova Scotia, where resources are limited and investigators may lack specialized experience in complex missing children cases. Critics argue that law enforcement has been far too lenient with both parents. Daniel Martell was reportedly questioned for only 4 hours, and Malehya has not faced any visible scrutiny since she left the property. For many, it's baffling that no arrests have been made and that critical witnesses seem to come and go without consequence. As the investigation drags on, frustration continues to mount. The community wants answers, real ones, and they want accountability from everyone involved. With Daniel's polygraph passed and tech devices now under scrutiny, public attention is shifting. Why haven't the other adults on the property stepped forward? Why hasn't an AMBR alert been issued yet? And why hasn't Malehya, the children's mother, returned to search or speak publicly? What's clear is that this case no longer rests solely on what happened during that 20-minute window when Jack and Lily disappeared. It now hinges just as much on what those around them are, or aren't, willing to reveal. The truth may lie not in what's already been said, but in the silence that remains. When the facts are sparse and emotions run high, it's easy to get swept away by speculation. Theories multiply, timelines are dissected, and everyone becomes a suspect in the court of public opinion. But at the heart of this case are two missing children, and no theory, no guesswork, no online argument can bring them back without real evidence. Until official findings are confirmed by law enforcement, we must be careful not to turn suspicion into judgment. It's natural to question, to wonder, even to doubt. But we must also remember the gravity of wrongly accusing someone without facts. That can destroy lives too. Let us not forget the true victims in this story, Lily and Jack Sullivan. Two young children whose whereabouts remain unknown. In all the noise, they deserve our focus. They deserve our prayers. May they be safe, wherever they are. May those responsible, whoever they may be brought to justice through truth, not speculation. And may every search, every lead, and every moment of hope bring us closer to their return. Until then, we hold space for truth, patience, and above all, for the safety and well-being of two children who deserve nothing but love and light.